Jeremy, we're back.
We're back.
We're doing
Back
this.
from break. We took a break.
Yes, we did. Can't wait to see everybody.
Hey, everybody. It's Everything Energy with Tina and Jeremy.
We're back.
Welcome.
Yeah,
We're
we're
back.
back from a break. I
We
think
took a
it
break.
was, yeah, I don't think it wasn't
I needed a
intentional.
minute,
Yeah. I know I
you
looked
know?
back to when our last post was, our last episode, and it was August 19th.
Yeah, that's when shit hit the fan in my life.
Yeah. So this wasn't an intentional break. Not like
No.
conscious, but I'm sure angels and everybody were taking care of us.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, August was crazy. August, September, and the beginning of October has been nuts for me. How about for
Hmm.
you?
I wouldn't say crazy. I mean, yeah, I did get COVID in there, but I wouldn't say
Yeah.
crazy, but the break was definitely needed. Plus my grandson was born 9 days
Yeah.
ago. So that was amazing. So yeah, it was necessary. And I was,
Yeah.
um, and just being available to support you through what you've been going through, the best that I
Yeah.
can, or as much as you'd allowed me to is,
Thank you so much. I really appreciate your support. You're a really good friend. And
our
yeah, I tend to kind of isolate when I go through something difficult. So,
Mhm.
yeah,
Yeah.
I'm not one that like rallies the troops, you know.
Mhm. Do you
I
think that's
usually
your
kind of
rabbit and your rat
yeah,
and your
rabbit and
cherry?
rat, and I also have a dog.
Mhm.
So, but
Yeah.
I guess dogs are cuddly and they need cuddles and support. But
Mhm.
yeah, I think my rabbit and my rat kind of isolated and went into their little thicket to hide for a minute.
Yeah. So, yeah, we got some heavy stuff that we wanna bring light to, I guess,
Yeah. Yeah.
today when we talk.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, so in, August, my mom, unexpectedly had a stroke, and she passed away 7 days later,
Mm.
and we knew she had pancreatic cancer, and, she had a resurgence of the cancer, and they gave her 6 months, and so we were planning on a holiday season, we were planning on, her being around until at least January, but she unexpectedly had a stroke and she passed away pretty quickly. So it was kind of an interesting thing to go through if you've ever lost a parent uh, or haven't lost a parent. There's no way to describe to someone who hasn't
Mhm.
gone through it what it feels like because it
Mhm.
doesn't feel like anything I've ever experienced in my life. And you can kind of, even if your parents are sick or they're getting to the age of passing away, you can kind of anticipate what it's going to be like, but you're really not going to know it until you go through it, which has been kind of a surprise for me because I thought, oh, I've been kind of wrapping my mind around my mom passing away because she had cancer, and I've been anticipating what it's going to be like, but when it comes, you just don't. It's nothing like you think it's going to be like. And that's why today we're actually going to talk about grief and what grief looks like and how it manifests and the different stages of grief and kind of what my journey has been too. So, yeah, that's what we're going to talk about.
Well,
And
clearly
Tina,
I'm having issues with this
Tina
this topic because
Tina's got a stretchy
as you're talking, both of my parents are living. I have no relationship with my birth father, my biological factor. Um, my mother's, very healthy. She's got her aches and pains, but she's pretty healthy for the most part.
Mhm,
But it makes me think about all the different kinds of relationships that people have with their parents.
mhm.
Like I can, as much as I dislike my father and have created distance between him and I to protect myself and my family,
Yeah,
I know that when he goes, it's not going to be what I thought. There's a part of me that's going to be like, yeah, he's gone. Finally, he can't
yeah,
hurt anybody
yeah.
else. But I also know that there's going to be some serious grief. I'll,
Mhm.
go through those levels, those stages of, denial or I wished it had been different. And so we
Mhm.
never know how, no matter how close you are or how distant you are from a relative, you don't know how it's going to affect you.
No.
Yeah, so
Nope.
you have a good vantage point to share with us.
Yeah, it's pretty fresh still. So, and I'm still
Mhm.
going through all of the different stages. So, should we talk about the stages and list them a little bit and then go through it?
Sure.
Okay, so the first one that I'm seeing on my list here is shock.
Mm.
It's the initial shock of something, an event like for me, it's my mother's death, but it can be an accident. It could be someone passing away. It could be a breakup. It could be a divorce. All
Mhm.
of these things are factors here because grief is grief. It may show up a little bit different. It may manifest differently and feel a little bit different, but the stages for grief are all the same.
I think that's important what you just said, is because grief isn't just about someone you care about dying. It's
Mhm.
losing a job. It's going through a divorce. It's moving to a new,
Yeah.
home or a new state. It's we're even just us as humanity are going through so many stages or experiences of grief where we're losing just our sense of stability, or we're
Mhm.
losing, hope. So any time that we experience loss, we have to be gentle on ourselves and each other and allow those stages that Jeremy is going to talk about to surface, to help us navigate those, to help us understand what we're going through and honor
Yeah.
those things, as little as they might seem.
Mhm.
So thank you.
Well, I think that shock is kind of one of those things where there's this disbelief that's happened. Like, oh my gosh, I can't believe this is happening. Even though maybe it's something that you've anticipated, like losing your job, like you've been seeing the writing on the wall and for weeks leading up to it, but you still can't believe it. You're in disbelief. And I think that when you're in shock, you're wanting a sense of stability. I know for me, when I go into shock, I have kind of an out of body experience. I just float right up out of my body and I dissociate. So it's kind of an interesting thing to watch everyone go through their shock. Like as I was kind of witnessing my family, there were some people that shut
Mm,
down, some people that got
mm,
busy. I that's what I do. That's what my mom used to do if she went through some kind of traumatic thing. I got busy and I started organizing the funeral and organizing the
mm,
service. And so, yeah, me and my aunt got really, really busy figuring out what was
mhm,
going to happen for the
mm.
service.
Yeah.
The next stage is denial. You're like, oh, this isn't really happening.
Mhm,
I don't think that this is real. Um, I'm going to just try to return to normal as quickly as possible
mhm,
and try to get back to things. I think that and mind you, we're just going through the list of grief as we've Googled them. The
mhm,
thing about grief, though, is you can flip to
mm,
different it can go out of order. It's not
mhm.
always gonna start with shock and
Right.
denial. Maybe you might go into not denial before you go into shock, like, "No, this isn't
Mhm.
happening.
Yeah.
She's still here," or, "I still have a job," or, "We can't be broken up." Like,
Mhm.
you don't have to go through the exact process.
I think
Um
that denial thing is a big one, especially if it's something where it isn't like a I mean, yes, like in your mom, there could absolutely be denial, but in other situations, like, you don't wanna accept that this is the reality. I don't wanna accept that
Mhm.
I'm having to go through this divorce, or that I'm having to create a resume and get myself back out there again, or you
Yeah.
just don't wanna accept this new reality that's there.
Yep. Yeah. The next one is anger. This is one I'm familiar with. I'm an Aries, and
Mm,
so anger is very easy for me to feel. And that's kind of what I was thinking. I was anticipating anger because that's usually how I react to everything, but I kind of went into shock when my mom passed away. I'm starting to feel anger kind of bubbling to the surface now that it's been a month, since everything was happening, but anger is here's what I like about anger. Anger is a motivator. It gets you moving, it gets you active. Anger wants you to do something. It wants you to
mhm,
perform something. So, anger has kind of motivated me since my mom passed to get busy. Work has
Mm,
been a really, really great distraction. And me and you have been working on some things together. And I'm just at my computer,
mhm.
funneling that anger energy into my work, which has been
Yeah.
really great because the next phase is kind of a bargaining. It kind of swaps between bargaining and depression. Bargaining is kind of an interesting phase of um, is an interesting phase of grief. What would you say the bargaining phase would be like for you?
I'm not sure. I do wanna ask you just for a minute, though, and maybe this will help, because maybe this is where this fits in. I don't know if it's anger or bargaining of is where the blame might come in, where
Oh,
you're blaming a situation or the doctor or the person for not taking
mhm.
care of their health or,
Yeah.
wanting to put the blame somewhere.
Yeah, you're wanting to identify what was the issue? What is the thing that caused this thing, that caused this trauma, that caused her death, or that caused the breakup? Like, what did I do wrong in my job to deserve this,
Mhm.
right? You're wanting to figure out putting all the pieces together. I think that's a great example of bargaining because you're
Well, I
wanting
think
you're
Go
go
ahead.
ahead.
Well, I think that's where a lot of people are in the world right now. A lot of people, especially in the USA right now, we're in election period, it's blaming the other people. It's blaming those
Mhm,
people or that person. And is that part of this anger bargaining thing that if they hadn't done that, then we wouldn't be in this situation?
mhm. Yeah.
Yeah, I just think that's a I'm not sure if I understand bargaining in this in these phases of grief. How do you
Well, I think it's just what we were talking about. Um, I mean, it's kind of like, well, if this happened, then I can be like this. Since this happened, I have permission to do this. Or since this happened, it must be this person's fault.
Mhm. Mhm. Okay. Oh, I see. So that's the internal conversation of bargaining, of
Yeah.
making sense of it.
Yeah. Because you're trying to put all of the pieces together. Your brain can't really
Mhm.
function in a way that's making sense of
Okay.
everything. So I think bargaining is just trying to put all of the pieces together. And then the next one is depression.
Mm.
Now,
Yeah.
depression to me is the opposite of anger. Anger is kind of a motivator, but depression is like,
Mm.
you've got the chocolate, you're in bed with Netflix. You can't do
Mhm.
anything else.
Mhm.
And depression for me is kind of a debilitating thing. I've always
Mhm.
been a pretty busy person. I always like to keep doing something and keep busy. But when I'm depressed, I don't want to do anything. I really have no desire and no energy to do anything. Whereas at least with the anger or even the denial, I can
Mhm.
keep active and busy, right?
Yeah. Or you can almost it seems like with the other ones, you can kind of talk your way out of it, or you can do something about the feeling. You can
Yeah.
shift it. Where depression feels more like a whole body system shut down, almost
Mhm.
like saying, okay, we need to create space for recovery, for regeneration, for rest, so that you
Yeah.
can continue on this journey, this grieving journey, or whatever journey you're on. Because it's hard to get out of depression. You can't just say, okay, well, I'm just going to get to work and it'll pass. It's not,
Right.
it's different.
Well, and that might be a part of the bargaining as well. Trying
Mm,
to talk yourself out of the depression, trying
mm-hmm,
to come up with solutions to kind of get you through this quicker. Because I it's been kind of interesting. I've gone through a lot of different trauma in my life. I've gone through a lot of different grieving processes. So I thought it was going to be the same when my mom passed away, but it's been completely different. I've
mm-hmm.
been able to kind of control and kind of drive the situation when I'm grieving about something else, but this is completely different. It's its own monster. It takes over. Like I'll be working on something on the computer, and then I'll have a memory come up and I'll be in tears and I
Oh,
have to go right to bed and just cry it out and be in that depressed phase. This is not a situation where I can just bargain my way out of being depressed. I
yeah.
literally have to feel it. And
Mhm.
I don't know, it's probably different for everyone else as well. Like, maybe
Mhm.
the depression phase of grief shows up differently than it does
Mhm.
for me, for other people. I
Yeah,
know, I've always been a crier, so
me too.
a I'm not afraid of, showing emotion or crying. I don't necessarily enjoy crying in front of other people, but since the death of my mom, I haven't been able to control it. When the tears
Mm.
come, it's just the floodgates are open. Whereas in the
Mhm.
past, I've been able to kind of control that and kind of choke it down and maybe bargain my way out of it. But
Mhm.
in this instance, bargaining has not been something that I could master. It's just
Mm.
when it takes over, it takes over.
I can relate to that because I haven't lost anybody, like, in my family, but 2 women who are pivotal in me being where I'm at right now. Just absolutely pivotal. I would not be sitting here having these conversations if it wasn't for these 2 women. And man, like you said, it's been a few years, but all of a sudden their energy will just come to the surface, and you just got to let it come. You got to ride that
Mhm.
wave and just let it take you. And I always see it as a moment of like, oh, you're present. And I get to honor you. I get to thank you because I can feel you. So
Yeah,
I look at those moments as that person is present with me when that comes up. It could be a memory that brings it, but I believe it's the person that brings that from the other side. I like
yeah,
those moments.
yeah. Let's talk about the next one, and this is th you named it, something different than I've got on my list, but it's
Hmm.
reconstruction, right?
Yeah,
Is that
yeah. This is I'm con I remember 15, 20 years ago, it was 5 stages of grief. So
yeah,
now we're
denial,
talking about
anger,
s
yeah, yeah. So,
so yeah,
I guess the
reconstruction.
reconstruction phase would be what? Would it be just kind of,
Well, this is what has to be done then. I mean, if you're going through a divorce, you have to reconstruct your life. You have okay, well, these are the changes that have to be made. Or you
yeah,
helping out with the estate of your mother or getting the details taken care of. It's to me, it feels more like mundane or tangible kind of tasks that need to be taken care of.
that's probably what I did as soon as mom passed,
Mhm.
because I went into "Okay, what needs to get done? Let's get everything figured out for the service and contact people," and I was
Mhm.
on the phone. I felt like an office manager for the 4 days after my mom passed away until the funeral because me and my aunt and my dad were just on the phone communicating with people, making phone calls and making sure insurance and stuff was taken care of. So,
Wow.
yeah, that yeah, I tend to go into that phase pretty quickly.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then the last stage is acceptance. Well, this has happened, what now?
Mm. Mhm. Well, okay. I'm learning that a lot of part of acceptance is just sitting in that and just observing it and not quickly going to the what's next. Just
Ooh,
allowing
okay.
the space of the acceptance
Mhm.
because the mind wants answers. It wants to know what's next. It wants to hope. It wants those things. But if we can just allow ourselves to be in that space of acceptance and just sit in the open space now, um, and see where that guides us.
Mhm.
Kind of being in that space of surrender or just flow of wherever I'm being pushed and guided to. Have you have you come to any acceptance in your
I
stages
think
here?
well, I went to therapy yesterday and I was talking to my therapist about this, and I said, I was looking online at the stages of grief, and I'm flip-flopping back and forth. I'll feel really angry one moment, and then I'll go into acceptance the next, and then I'll be crying in bed the next, and then I'll be going through, well, I wonder what would have happened if I had dot, dot, dot. I wonder what would have happened if we had a
Mm.
better relationship. You
Mhm.
know, I wonder how my dad and my siblings are feeling. They had a great relationship with her. I had a crappy relationship with her. So I go back and forth through all of the different stages. And I think every day I get to a little bit more, I get kind of a little bit more of a nibble of acceptance, but I think
Mm.
that it takes time. I mean,
Mhm.
I've
Sure.
heard that it takes at least a year to really wrap your mind around what's happened if you lose a
Mm.
family member or when you lose a family
Mhm.
member. So I'm just kind of, I feel like I'm on a surfboard and I'm riding the wave because all of these things come in phases and I never know which one is going to come next.
Mhm. Yeah. And I think too, and I think you and I talked about this. This is what I believe and what I've been shown by a couple teachers that if we're energetic beings, right? We're just these different particles that vibrate at different frequencies. Make some particles are more dense than others, and that's what makes up us, right? And then we
Mhm,
have these energetic fields. Well, the people that we're close with, their energy is a part of ours. And when they leave this energetic plane that we live on, it takes some of that, our energy with them,
mhm,
or their energy, part of their energy is lingering with us, and then they take part of us with them. And
mhm.
it's always felt like there's a hole, right? You feel a hole in your heart, or you feel a
Yeah.
hole in your field because somebody's missing now, or what
Mhm,
used to be is no longer there. And so we feel incomplete. And we're trying to fill that hole with other things. And sometimes we
mhm,
don't know what to fill that hole with. We fill it with chocolate ice cream or, alcohol or whatever, or, binge watching TV.
mhm.
But I have learned that, we want to fill that hole with love and light. We want to fill that hole with those memories and those, it doesn't even have to be about the other person, because I've witnessed people over the years that when they lose someone, man, and this is not a judgment, but they don't know how to recover from that. They feel so empty, so lost, and I think it's because the hole hasn't been healed properly.
Mhm.
The missing part of them, and I think I know there's people out there because I've met them that can help heal that the parts of you that, especially people who have who experience a lot of death in their families.
Yeah.
Gosh.
Um, I I was listening to an interview with, Andrew Garfield the other day. He's an actor. He was in one of the Spider-Man movies, and he recently lost his mom. He was on the, Stephen Colbert show, and he said, "For me, grief is unexpressed love, and I'm never going to be able to express fully that I'm never going to be able to express fully that love that I have for my mother, the gratitude that I have, that I got given the best mother around." So it's kind of like grief is that unexpressed part of yourself that
Mm,
you didn't get to say
beautiful.
to that person because we never really get enough time with everyone in our lives, right? We
Or the
never
time
feel
that
like
we'd
we have
want,
time.
the,
Yeah.
the time that we really desire, but they can't give us.
Yes,
Hmm.
exactly. So I think that's beautiful that grief is unexpected, unexpressed love.
Yeah, Stephen Colbert speaks very good, very well. He's so
Yes.
articulate and poetic about loss and the loss of his mother too. If you ever get a chance to hear him speak about it,
Yes.
very moving.
Yep.
Mm. So it's only been what, 6 weeks,
Yes.
5 weeks, 6 weeks since your mom
Yeah.
passed.
Mhm.
Mm. Has she
Yeah.
shown up for you in any signs? Have you dreamt about
No.
her? She's still
Nope,
she's still
she has not
crossing
shown
over.
up. I like I said, me and my mom had a lot of unresolved problems, and, we did not have a good relationship. I loved my mom, I know that she loved me, but
Mm,
we had a very fractured, broken relationship.
mhm,
Um, And I think that that's probably why I'm going through all of the different grieving processes, probably a little bit different than the rest of my family members who are all very close to her. My dad and my brothers, all had very close relationships with her. They were talking to her on a daily basis. And,
Mhm.
me and my mom connected maybe once a month, once every couple of months
Mhm.
because we had to keep things very, very surface because our fundamental beliefs about life, our values about life and the world, political, spiritual beliefs, all were drastically opposite. We
Mm.
really didn't. We could see eye to eye on television shows, and some of this we had similar interests, and we had a lot of similarities when I was a young boy. But as soon as I came out of the closet, something really switched for us.
Mm.
So yeah, it's been kind of an interesting
Yeah.
thing because I thought when she died, I would only be remembering the negative things, but actually it's been a flood of a lot of images from my
Mm.
childhood of when we were really close and when we were really good friends. So yeah, it's the another quote that Andrew Garfield said is the wound is the only route to the gift. So it's kind of
Mhm.
like remembering my mom in all of these really beautiful memories that I have of her from childhood, just images and snapshots. That's when I'm able to kind of get to the grieving process of releasing it and crying about it because
Mhm.
if I don't have those memories come back, I'm able to just kind of focus on work and kind of just maybe it's the bargaining or the reconstruction, just getting busy um,
Mhm.
and kind of avoiding it. But yeah, having positive memories and negative memories have brought up a lot of different emotions. So yeah,
Well,
it's
I
been
know the stuff with your folks hasn't been easy, and
mm-mm.
I know they don't have parents don't have as big an influence on their children as they would think they do, but they created you, and you're
Yeah.
a wonderful, brilliant human being,
Oh,
and
thank
I'm
you.
getting emotional because I thank your mom and dad for you, because 'cause
Oh,
you're a
thank
gift to
you.
me, so thank you.
Oh, thank you so much. Um,
Mhm.
I I have always kind of come back to that ideology when when I'm dealing with like an issue with my parents or just kind of going through the pain of having a difficult relationship with them. They created me and I came from
Mhm.
them and I turned out pretty good. So
You turned out
I have
great.
to thank them for that. And I have to thank my mom for giving me life.
Yeah.
The person that brought me onto the planet is no longer
Mhm.
here, and so that's kind of a strange feeling. It feels kind of detached somehow.
Yeah.
It was,
S
even though we didn't have a close relationship, she kind of grounded me to the earth somehow, and that grounding is kind of gone.
mm.
So,
So let me ask you, why do you think you chose her to be your mom in this lifetime?
ooh, that's a good question. Uh, um I'm trying to figure out how to say this. Uh, she my mother showed me how not to do things.
Mhm. Sometimes
She
that's
showed
what
me
yeah.
how to live her life, and she showed me how not to treat people.
Mm. Mm. Wow.
And I think that is a huge lesson because I watched my parents very closely and
Mhm.
how they interacted with people and what they would say about them when those people were not there.
Yeah.
And I thought I don't want to be like that. I
Mm.
don't want that. And
Yeah.
I'm not saying my mom was a horrible person. Disclaimer, she was not a horrible person.
Mhm.
Um, but I think she struggled with the way she treated people sometimes,
Mm.
and I learned very, very early on just by watching her and also my father, um, different things that I didn't wanna do to other
Mhm.
people or how to treat them. So
Yeah.
I learned how to treat people by watching my parents, and I I did the exact opposite of what they did.
Mhm. You are so good to people. That's why people love you so much and seek
I
your
try.
you
I
are
really try. Kindness is something that I've always really, really strived to
mhm.
be to
Mhm.
people. Um,
And that's yeah, that's why you're my friend. That's why I love you
right?
so much.
And that's why you're my friend, because 'cause you're such a kind person too. Um, but yeah, even though we went through all of this, all of the pain of struggling with our relationship and me watching how she did things and how I didn't wanna be that, I still love her. Even to this
Mm,
moment, I miss her, and I just wish I could hug her one more time.
mm,
And that's that's all I'm been thinking about for the last 6 weeks is I'm wishing I could just have 5 more minutes with her, even though
mhm.
we struggled.
Do you believe that she sees things differently now?
Oh, yes, I do. I
Good.
do, and I don't think she's very happy
Mm,
about it.
mhm. I'm sure.
I think that when I think that there are many people on this planet that belong to organized religion that have a very definite way as to what they are going to see in the afterlife, and I think they get there and they're extremely surprised and very let down. And I'm not trying to laugh evilly like, "Hooray, I'm so glad."
Oh, I am.
What I'm trying to say is, I think that she's experiencing a lot of difficulty right now because she's seeing her whole life. She's seeing some of the reasons why I don't treat people the way she treated them.
Mm,
She's
mm,
seeing all of those things, and she's
yeah.
seeing the truth of what was really happening behind the scenes in our family. She was seeing what was
Mm,
happening behind the scenes with me, and she's getting a big download of what the reality of the situation in life was, and
mhm.
I don't think that she's enjoying that. But
Yeah.
I think that she's also really, really coming to an ideology of what her whole life was and
Mm,
what it amounted to, and so I think that there's something really beautiful about that. I think there's something really
I agree.
it's kind of like a bookend, right?
Mhm, mhm,
We begin this life and we end this life, and then we get to see how we affected other people
mhm, mhm.
and what our beliefs what our how our beliefs shaped us in this lifetime, and then ultimately what we got from this lifetime.
Yeah.
I'm a strong believer in reincarnation. I don't think that we
Mhm.
can just do one life and then it's over.
Yeah.
That seems very limiting to me, and again, there might be religious people watching right now, and I'm not trying to, bash on your beliefs, but I think that being open to what happens after this life rather than identifying exactly what you think is going to happen can cause
Mhm,
you a little bit of pain after you pass.
mhm, mhm. Yeah. I am so conscious, like, maybe too conscious about the footprints, the energy I'm gonna leave behind, right?
Mhm.
What people are gonna think of me when I'm
Yeah,
gone, you
yeah.
know? I wanna be thought with I want people to remember me in good ways and
Mhm.
not, "Oh, I really struggled with her. Man, she was hard to get along with," or "She was, this or that."
Yeah,
So just to be the best person, best human I can be,
yeah,
leave that
yeah.
good imprint. Wow. So your dad's, how's he handling all this?
He's having a really hard time. I mean, he lost the love of his life. They've been married for 54 years. I
Wow.
mean, that's or 50, 51, 52, maybe
Mhm.
years. I I can't imagine what he's going through. I've only been married to my husband for 10 years, and I can't
Mm.
even imagine losing my husband.
Mhm.
Um, so he's lost his touchstone. He lost his rock. They've been really, really there for each other for the last 50 years, and so
Mhm.
he's having to relearn how to do his whole life all over again,
Do you
and that
notice
must
these
be really
stages of
difficult.
yeah, do you know these notice these stages of grief when you visit him or talk to him?
Yeah, I can tell. I can tell that he's dealing with a lot of depression right now. I think
Okay.
he's dealing with a lot of sadness. I think he's dealing with a lot of, insomnia as well.
Mm.
I think he's losing a lot of sleep because I think he's just, again, really trying to figure out how to start over in his 70s. That must be
Mm.
so difficult.
Oh,
And
wow. Yeah.
he's also got his own health things that he's dealing with.
Mhm.
He has melanoma that he's dealing with right now. So he's also taking care of his health and, dealing with what it's like to not have his partner anymore. It it's very difficult for him. I feel so bad for him because he's navigating waters that I can't even wrap my mind around
Yeah.
because my husband's still here and my husband's
Mhm.
still alive. So, yeah, I feel bad for him because I think he's dealing with a lot of depression.
It just feels very lonely.
Really lonely, and he was her
Mhm.
caretaker. So he's been
Mhm.
taking care of her for the last, I mean, she's been dealing with cancer for the last couple of years,
So
and
he
he's
was
been
that was his purpose, and now he doesn't have that.
yeah, yeah.
Mhm.
So I'm hoping that what he switches that purpose into is taking care of himself instead of taking care of my siblings,
Mm.
taking care of what he needs to be doing right now. What are some of the things he wants to do? What are some of the things that he desires in his life? Focusing and refocusing on that, I would hope that's my hope for him.
Yeah. That's great advice. Great advice for anybody.
Yeah,
Wow. This is a lot.
it
Mm.
is.
But it's important to talk about because
I think
I
it is.
know I struggle. I'm not really familiar with death. Um, I've been to a couple funerals in my life, but they haven't been anybody close to me. Those two
Mhm.
women that I talked about, I couldn't be there, you know,
Yeah.
at their funerals. I don't handle it well. I don't know how to show up in that
Mhm.
energy. I don't know if it's because then I've got to deal with everybody else's energy that's there. It's
Mhm.
too much for me to manage. So I have my own private ceremony, for those people, just me
Yeah.
and them on my
Yeah.
own. And I
Mhm.
try not to beat myself up over that because there seems to be societal or cultural expectations that, this is how you have to show up and you have to go
Yeah.
to see them in the hospital and you have to
Right.
go do all that.
Yeah.
So I guess I'm just sharing that so that maybe there's other people out there that, don't feel guilty about the way that you experience loss or grief. Like
Right.
we're just talking, we all experience it differently, and
Totally different.
don't do something that pulls you into a place that,
Mhm.
you can't just be authentic in how you're experiencing it. I just
Right.
think we put too much weight on expectations and, this is the way it's supposed to look and the way it's supposed to be.
Yeah.
And I disagree with all of that. And that's the dragon in me.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I was
Yeah.
just going to say also, I we haven't really talked about a lot about crying, but there are some people, when they're going through the grieving process, they don't cry at all,
Mm,
and
mm,
that's not something that's the wrong way.
mhm.
It's
I
not wrong for someone to not cry. Maybe they cry behind closed doors, maybe they don't cry at all.
exactly.
And then there's me. I cry about everything.
Mhm,
But I just I was noticing that there were, at my mom's funeral, there were some people that were really devastated and crying, and there were some people that were not. And I I think it's important not to judge people who aren't showing
mhm.
emotion because maybe they're showing it in a completely different way.
Or maybe they're in one of these stages of grief, they're in shock. You
They're in
can't
shock.
or they're angry. You don't want them to express their anger at you. So,
I
yeah,
would
be
prefer not.
By the way, we have an anger episode coming up. We have a
Yes,
special
we
guest.
do. Yes, we do.
Yeah, everybody's different, and we have to quit, hanging shit over people's heads about the way it's supposed to be.
Mhm,
Your mom's service was really nice. It wasn't overly intense. It was just a gathering. It was
mhm.
just beautiful.
And that's what
But
she wanted. She
mhm,
wanted it something simple. She wanted, kind of people to congregate and talk, share stories about her. She didn't want, like, a line and a viewing and everything like that, so
mhm,
it was just very simple, and that's what she
yeah,
wanted, so yeah, and it's those those situations are always weird too because, like, I was there and people were coming in that I didn't know, and, "Oh, I remember when you were a little boy," and I'm just thinking, "Okay, thanks for that." Like, "Oh, hey, let me know if there's something we that your family." I don't know your fucking phone number. I don't know you. Why are you here talking? I remember that. I don't care what you remember. I don't care. My mom passed away. I'm sitting in this room with a bunch of people that I really don't care to talk to
Yeah.
at all.
Mhm.
They're all coming in for a hug, and I'm like, "Okay, who the fuck am I hugging right now? Who is this?" And all night, I was just kind of looking at my aunt and uncle going, "Oh god, who is this person? What am I gonna hear next?" Like, "Oh, dear," you know? And then the people that I did know that know me, like, my friends, you showed up. A couple of my friends showed up, and that was really nice because we all kind of hunkered down in a corner and we're just kind of talking and stuff, and that was really nice to see my friends show up. They didn't need to, you didn't need to, but I was really appreciative that you did because it kind of broke up the monotony of, "Oh, I do you remember me?" No, no. If it's been more than 20 years, I don't remember you.
Right, right.
Nor do I care. Is it time to go yet? Like, yeah, that I think funerals and wakes and viewing, I think that whole thing is so freaking bizarre. I think it's
That's why I
bizarre.
just came up to you and I just gave you a big hug, and I'm like, "This sucks." And you're
This
like,
sucks. This just sucks. It does. Oh, and then all of the people from the congregation that I don't know show up.
"Oh, mhm,
What am I supposed to say to them? "Oh,
mhm,
thanks
right,
for coming. Oh, so sorry for your loss, and, thank you. I know there's really nothing that you can say to a person
right,
that's grieving,
yeah,
the loss of someone, but, oh my gosh, that night was just so freaking bizarre because it's just like, oh, but then there's some people that I was really happy to see, like, I knew
mm."
all of my mom's friends. I knew who she would tell me about. I cut my mom's hair for 25 years. I knew who the people that she really, really loved were, and I
Mm,
think that's probably what got me the most. I know that
mm,
her family members were there, and that choked me up a little bit, but it was when her friends showed up that I really kind of lost it because those
mm.
were the people that she really loved. They were the people that she really,
Oh,
really relied on and loved so much, and so I loved seeing her friends there, but a lot of my dad's friends showed up, and I remembered some of them as well, but yeah, you know, I find it, but, in every single culture when people lose a family member or, burying someone or funerals, it's
mm,
all really bizarre in every single
yeah,
culture.
yeah, it is.
I
It
think it's
just
weird for everyone.
the obligatory stuff is too much for me. Personally, how I wanna go is I was watching the first Thor movie, and this is, like, the Viking way to go, is
Mhm.
put mom on a wooden raft, cover her with a bunch of wood and branches and shit, push her off into sea, and then have one of my kids shoot a flaming arrow and hit the raft and then just set me afire
I
just as I
what
float across the water.
Yes. Like, that is brilliant.
Wouldn't that be cool?
Yes, that would be so cool. I've told people that when I go, I want a big like, big picture of me when I was in my 20s and I was really hot and I looked really great, and I want purple glitter all over it, and I want Olivia Newton-John playing in the background with all of my friends telling embarrassing stories about me. That's what I want.
I don't have any embarrassing stories about you.
Well, stick
I don't think.
around. There's
Okay.
gonna be plenty. I'm very good at humiliating myself, so, yeah, I just and, for those of my friends who are, drinkers, bring some whiskey. Bring some
Mm,
whiskey, have a great time, listen to some really good Olivia Newton-John music,
mhm.
tell funny stories about me, and then go home.
Love that. Oh, I
Don't
can't.
linger for 7 fucking hours lamenting.
Mhm. And pay all that money for all those funeral
No.
expenses and, ugh. So are you into
No.
cremation or what?
Oh, yeah,
Yeah, me
totally.
too.
Yeah, totally. And what I find interesting about it is I'm into cremation because 'cause I'm a fire sign, I'm an Aries.
Mhm,
I have a lot of
mm,
fire energy.
mhm.
So, the idea of being in a casket and going down into the cold ground and not being able to get out, I mean, I know I'll
Mhm.
be dead, so I'm not gonna want to
Right,
get out of the casket or be
right.
underground. That idea is just I just don't like that idea at all. And then there's the
Mhm,
new way that they're doing the freezing cremation thing,
mm,
where
mhm,
they freeze the body and it disintegrates into kind of a powder substance. I don't
mm.
like that either because it's cold.
It's cold.
Not that I'll be feeling any of those things, but I don't know. I
Mhm.
think that
Yeah.
everyone is so very specific. Like, I have a friend, Mark, and the idea of cremation does not appeal to him at all. He's like, "I wanna be
Mm,
buried."
mhm.
Yeah, so,
Yeah.
yeah.
Oh my gosh. Well, I think it's wonderful that you guys honored her the way that she wanted to be honored.
Yep.
I don't really
What
care
we did what
what they do after I'm gone. Once
Yeah,
I'm
we did
cremated,
what
just
she wanted to do. We
mhm.
did what she wanted to do, which was
Yeah,
good.
that's sweet.
Well, this has been a really interesting conversation. I mean,
Mhm.
we meant to cover grief, but we've also been covering death at the same time, so it's been
Yeah.
kind of an interesting conversation. But comment below, what are some of the stages of grief that you've gone through, and how did they show up for you? How did they manifest? We'd be
Yeah,
really
maybe
interested
there's
in hearing about it.
yeah, maybe there's one that's more challenging than the other that,
Yeah.
man, it just you're not able to shake it or something.
Yes.
It's a lot, and like we talked about too, and it could be not necessarily around loss. It could be anything. I mean, I think
Mhm.
about, I turned on the news this morning after Hurricane Milton hit last Florida last night, and think of
Yeah.
all the loss, all the grief
Millions and
that these
millions of
people.
people. Yeah.
Yeah, it's it's crazy the times we
Uh,
live in, and
it is.
show up in the way that you show up, and know that that's enough, and it's
Yep.
perfect. 'Cause
Yeah.
we do what we can. So thank you for bringing up this conversation. I really
Yes.
appreciate it, and thanks for being
Yes,
s
and
honest and sharing your story.
yes, absolutely, and if anyone out there is grieving and going through these stages of grief and you're really struggling, reach out to someone. Please
Mhm.
share your grief with people. Don't just hold it to yourself. Don't stay in the depression. Share your grief. Share it with someone.
Get help,
Reach
yeah,
out to someone.
yeah, I agree. Well, we love you all.
We do. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.